I just finished watching season 2 of Wednesday, which took me a little bit to actually complete, but honestly, guys, it was a huge step up from season 1. Season 1, I thoroughly enjoyed. Honestly, one of the best things about Wednesday is the actors behind it. Like, they are so good at what they do. Specifically, Wednesday, man, there are so many like little facial expressions in the way she walks where I'm like, oh my god, she's actually such a good actor. The guy who plays Tyler's a good actor too. Excuse me. I'm only familiar with when it comes to actor names, I'm only familiar with Jenna Ortega, so I'm just going to be referring to like their character names, but everyone does such a good job. I love the production of Wednesday. I love like the Halloween vibe. It's now October. It's like just a fun series to watch. I loved season 1. And season 2 was a huge step up in my opinion. So today we're going to be breaking down Wednesday, talking about what I liked. If there's anything that I didn't like, we're going to get into all of that in just a second. Before we do though, I do want to say hello everybody. Welcome back to another video. If you're new here, my name is Kyle. I am your guy with many YouTube channels. So we are brought with a ton of stuff right as the season kind of kicks off. Wednesday returns to school. It's a brand new semester. She returns to school with Pugsley. And I'm not going to lie to you, Pugsley was probably one of the few, and again, like the actor did a great job, whoever is playing Pugsley. He's one of the few characters that I didn't really care about. Whenever we were panning over going to him, like making friends or anything along those lines, I found myself just not caring. But we'll talk a little bit more about Pugsley as we continue on with the story. We're introduced to the new characters. Wednesday ends up meeting up with her friends again. Well, hang on, actually, Wednesday goes to school and she kind of figures out that all of a sudden she's popular, which she hates, and I love the way they play on that. But again, we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get on. We're also introduced to Principal Dort, who seems creepy at the beginning. Honestly, it wasn't shocking to me that Principal Dort ended up like being the character that he was. He was kind of like giving those vibes as it went on, and it wasn't until like, I don't remember exactly when it was. It was very early on that we figured out that Principal Dort was making Bianca siren people into fundraising for the school. He's going to steal all of the money. And on top of that, we have the first story with all of this, that being Wednesday officially has a stalker and she can't figure out who it was. But now we're introduced to Slurp, okay? Well, a little bit before Slurp, they have this, I can't remember what the party was for. Maybe it was just to kick off the semester, but Wednesday's stalker ends up stealing the book that she was writing about herself, hides it in a bonfire. Wednesday has to go inside the bonfire and make a big giant scene about it. She barely gets it. She goes up on stage and starts like freaking out upon everybody because everybody likes Wednesday all of a sudden. I don't remember what she said, but it was something like, I hate you all. You guys suck. Leave me alone. And I like that. And again, what really sells this entire thing is how Jenna Ortega plays Wednesday. Like, I can't even begin to like emulate the facial expressions that she does. I know it's just like a serious face. It's just like a still face, but it's like the way she carries herself, the way that she walks, the arms don't move. And like the smiles when Wednesday ends up smiling is at a very, very particular time. Like the timing's great, dude. That girl is a phenomenal actor. And it sucks like what she ended up doing to herself. Like she had that surgery where she ended up getting the fat sucked out of her face, because I'm not going to want to watch season 3 with her looking like a freak. Like I really question whether that's going to affect like the facial expressions she's able to bring to the show, because that's like one of the best parts. But anyways, got a little bit off topic over here. At that same time, I don't remember why, but Pugsley ended up taking off because, I think it was just because he heard about a student that was buried there. He has this weird shocking power. It's kind of like Darth Sidious, where he can just like bzz, bzz, like he can just, zap whatever he wants to zap. He accidentally zaps the zombie alive, and all of a sudden he names him Slurp, takes it in as a pet, and I didn't think that this story about the zombie was going to get as big as it did. But now everything's set up and the series kind of ends up taking off for the season, okay? And there's a few things to break down over here, okay? So first, we have Wednesday, who has her psychic vision of Enid's tombstone. Enid's gonna die. She freaks out because she's Wednesday, because she's weird. She could have figured out everything. And I know it's a little bit easier said than done, okay? Because if I was thinking, like, if I had psychic powers, if I could see the future, if I could see, like, little glimpses of what's going to happen here, I would go to my best friend and I would say, hey, I know this is really tough to hear. I would approach it like as delicately as possible, right? Hey, I had a vision of your tombstone. We need to make sure that you're as safe as possible. But Wednesday didn't do that, and we wouldn't really have a TV series if she did that. So Wednesday's just going to end up working to solve the case of this murder, and she's going to solve whoever is trying to get Enid. But then she ended up putting together that stalker must be the person who's going to kill Enid, so she needs to solve the stalker. But at the same time, she is neglecting and ignoring and being mean to Enid in general, which I feel bad for, because Enid just like has like Wednesday's best interest at heart. And I know that Wednesday can be mean in general, but I felt bad for her a little bit, to be honest with you. But as we continue on with the story, we have to circle back to Slurp a little bit, because he ended up escaping. Pugsley ended up keeping Slurp as a pet. He showed him to his friend, and it's important to note too, like, he ended up taking in, I think, the zombie as a pet, which I'm pretty sure this is what they were getting at, because they focused on, like, nobody really liking Pugsley. Shocker. Who would like Pugsley? I wouldn't want... Actually, that's not true. If I saw someone, like, off the rails and dangerous, like, I was always friends with the flight risks back in high school to make sure, like, you know what? If anything ever happened, I want to be that kid where it's like, hey, I think you need to go to the bathroom. And I'm like, yeah, yes, sir, I do need to go to the bathroom, dude. So I was always... I would probably be friends with somebody like Pugsley, but, like, come on! Regardless, he brought a zombie in. It's his pet. The zombie ends up escaping. Then we figure out that the stalker ended up kidnapping Enid and Bruno, which is really not a ton to break down right there. Wednesday just has to solve a bunch of riddles to figure out the case. They almost get crushed by spikes. And what ended up happening was the person who was stalking Wednesday was actually a fan of Wednesday. And this is where we're introduced to Agnes, the girl that can go invisible. And I gotta say, guys, Agnes was one of my favorite parts of this entire series. I loved her character. Again, whoever plays that chick in, like, the actress behind her, phenomenal. Creepy, weird, just, like, obsessed with Wednesday. You know, like, the little, like, giggle that she does when she's, like, helping things. Like, everybody who's acting in this show really, really, really carries it. And Agnes, whoever plays her, did a phenomenal job. And I loved the character as time's gone on. I loved how much she even then, we'll talk about it as we go on, but even when she ended up actually, like, building a relationship with Enid and ended up finding real friends, not, like, wanting to parrot whatever Wednesday does anymore. I liked the character development from her in the short time that we actually were with her. So she wanted to participate in prank day for the school. She wanted to impress Wednesday. And, like, she knows that Wednesday loves this sinister type stuff. But she had nothing to do with the murder that Wednesday was trying to solve. So Wednesday solved that case. But it wasn't Agnes who ended up murdering who Wednesday was trying to figure out. But after that whole thing ended up playing out, we are brought back into Bianca, and I didn't really talk about Bianca yet. She's one of those characters that I didn't really, like, care too much about. Her power's sick. I would love to have her power. Her and Agnes in power, I would do anything to get those powers. That'd be so cool. Just make anybody do whatever you want. But she's being blackmailed by Principal Dort, and to be honest with you, the whole thing about her mother was a little bit confusing to me. I'm sure they mentioned it, but it seemed almost... I know insignificant isn't the right word to use, but I don't know. I didn't find myself too interested in whatever the mother was doing. She was constantly hiding. She was constantly being blackmailed. Like, what did the mother do? And I'm sure that they explained it, but, like, she could have just left for some reason. She couldn't show her eye to the public, and then Principal Dort was kidnapping her, being like, hey, I got your mother. You have to just start persuading people to donate to me to get some money. So, yeah, you need to do that. Bianca ends up trying to siren Principal Dort, but he's wearing this little charm that protects himself, which, again, let's grab that, take it off of you, and then I'll siren you. It couldn't be that easy. Just need to get a few guys. I know that he ended up, like, having this flame power at the end, but it's pretty simple to take care of. But regardless, she is a little bit miserable. She's scared. She is doing the work of Principal Dort, and there's nothing that she can do about it. But again, I found myself not interested at all in, like, wherever the mother was moving. I didn't care. I kind of wanted to go back to, like, whatever Wednesday was doing. But now we continue on to which I believe is probably an entire episode in itself, was the camping trip. And I actually loved, like, it's funny to me how many distractions ended up coming in. We're going to talk about one specific one that actually made me, like, really laugh to myself watching this show. But the whole camping trip episode, I loved that entire thing. But long story short, Wednesday ended up, because her powers don't work anymore, and I believe the book was her grandma's book, or regardless, the book of the powers, or however she ended up, like, needing to get her powers back, it was in this book, but the book was dangerous, so the mother ended up taking the book, and Wednesday wasn't able to get the book back until, well, I mean, she didn't get the book back at anytime soon, but I'm jumping the gun a little bit. I'm trying to remember exactly at what point all of this happened, because it was, like, a lot going on in one episode, so I'll just say it now. Wednesday ended up dueling with her mom. Her mom proved to be the better duelist. And fencing's something I've never understood, man. Like, of everything. And there was another thing where she ended up going with Bianca to fencing, too. Such a strange sport. Like, I love the idea of sword fighting, but, like, I don't know. Not for me, man. Not for me, to be honest. But everything also gets interrupted, and I believe the duel was after this camping trip, but I loved the entire episode as well when they had, like, Nevermore versus those random scouts that were there, were like, we booked this, and, like, I don't know. It was those military Boy Scout types where The Nevermore kids obviously ended up defeating them. I can't believe that there was even a little bit of an issue at the beginning, but there's really nothing to break down. I enjoyed the entire thing. I thought it was great. That was every single time they took a break. Like, even the break from the actual murder mystery was very interesting in my opinion. But anyways, they're back at the camping trip at night, and shocker, Slurp ends up getting out, eating people. He ends up eating the the sore losers of the camping trip. They wanted to take their land back, I guess. The dude ends up getting eaten, but then Wednesday ends up actually stopping the zombie. I think Pugsley ended up shocking it too. But this is where we're led to. Now that I'm thinking about it, why was not Pugsley, Slurp put in a mental institution? Because that's kind of like what brought us over there, right? Why would they was Slurp even in there? Maybe I'm remembering that wrong. Huh. I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. Sorry if I got my facts wrong there. I don't remember how they ended up getting to the mental hospital, but they ended up taking Slurp away. Pugsley was pissed off about it. But regardless, it was kind of funny watching him eat people. Like everything with all of these outcasts, I just enjoyed the entire thing, to be honest with you. But Wednesday also, in the meantime, did find that cabin that she was looking for, and all she knows is that she's looking for Lois. But we're then brought into that mental institution where a lot goes on. It's the entire episode with Uncle Fester, and again, it didn't exactly take a break from the story. You know how I mentioned when I enjoyed when they ended up taking a break from the actual murder mystery? Everything that ended up going on with Uncle Fester was hilarious. I love his relationship with Wednesday. I love how freaky he is. I love that he was like looking for like this person named Lois, and then it ended up like he found another girl, but it's like good enough. You know what I mean? All of that was really great. I don't remember what Lois ended up standing out for, but it was like whatever project that they were working on. He ended up figuring out him and Wednesday ended up getting to the institution there, but he ended up figuring out what it was, and it was a secret lab where they take outcasts and take away their abilities to transform them into normies. I guess this was the project of Slurp, who Slurp is continuously also eating people and becoming more and more human as time goes on. Things go crazy. They figure out that Wednesday's there. Wednesday hides in the chaos. Slurp is going nuts. All of those outcasts are ended up being let out of the mental institution. And then while we did hear about him just a little bit, we're reintroduced to Tyler. And again, the dude is so good at like being creepy. Like again, his acting ability is phenomenal. Even like Uncle Fester. I'm going to stop talking about how good they are as actors. Like I would say like they got a phenomenal cast, dude. Everybody plays their part very, 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 very well. Okay. So Tyler ends up getting freed, and Wednesday teased him at the beginning. I don't remember why she was there. Was it to tease him? I don't remember. It was something at the beginning of the at the beginning of the season, but he freaks out. He goes in a hide form, and he just chucks Wednesday out a window. So Wednesday's in the hospital, and it turns out she has a brand new spirit guide. And I'm very sorry, guys. I know this sounds disrespectful, but I don't mean it to be. I always forget who the character's name is, because I can't unsee her as the big bitch from Game of Thrones. And I'm not calling her a big bitch. Like, that's what they called her in Game of Thrones. Like, oh, it's the big bitch. I never listened to her name. And then she's that actress. She's so good at what she does, but she's just been the big bitch my entire life. I know that sounds cringe, but I forgot what her name is. She's a new spirit guide of Wednesday. And she played a good part too. I thought it was a little bit strange that she was a spirit guide, but I guess that's the whole point of Wednesday. But anyways, Wednesday wants to get control of Tyler. Wednesday does a couple things to end up figuring out how to end up controlling a hide. They come together with their group. Was it the Nightshades? Their group had a name. They all had a plan. They were going to end up controlling Tyler. Tyler ends up attacking Nevermore because Tyler's nuts and Tyler needs revenge on Nevermore. Wednesday ends up trying to control him, which she didn't really get a chance because Tyler's mother, who is also a hide, ends up breaking in, coming in, and not saving the day, but saving Tyler. There was a little bit of a conversation. Tyler ended up having to take off, and then they're reunited with Slurp, who I forget Slurp's real name, but that whole relationship was creepy, and I guess that they're going to continue their project. But as Wednesday, and this is the best part of the series in my opinion, as Wednesday was trying to get her psychic ability back, she ended up figuring out something that she needed to go to a tombstone or whatever it was. She gets interrupted by Enid because she's being rude to Enid. And again, with Wednesday, you could have fixed this the entire time by just saying, hey, I saw your dead body in a vision. But she ends up getting interrupted. And I don't remember if they said there was only one shot or whatever it was. You can't interrupt it. There was like this spooky thing. They end up waking up back in their dome rooms and completely switched bodies, but they're still pissed off at each other, which is the best part. I thought this was the funniest and best part about the entire show. I don't often like laugh out loud to myself, but like my wife and I were like cackling a little bit watching this entire thing again. And it goes to show, last time we'll say it, how good these two actresses are, because whoever played Enid can play whoever played Enid could play Wednesday in that body too. And then Jenna Ortega just like was doing the same thing, right? Like phenomenal work. I love how they were pissed off at each other, and Wednesday just ultimately does like the worst thing ever, breaks up with her boyfriend, and then Enid's pissed off too. Enid starts going around having a little dance off, a dance party. People are filming her, and the best part about that entire thing was that we figured out that Wednesday actually was allergic to color, and Enid is like the most colorful person of all time. So she ended up rashing out, breaking out in hives. Like, I can't really recap everything that went on about that. They just did stuff in each other's bodies, and it was really funny. After they're pissed off about each other, Agnes ended up revealing to Enid, who was in Wednesday's body, what Wednesday was doing. She's like, oh, but you're just making yourself go crazy, just trying to save Enid. And then Enid kind of figures out like, oh my god, Wednesday does care about me, and everybody's all like happy. I like the way that they ended up doing that, and I like that Agnes didn't know that they ended up swapping bodies, and Enid had to be Wednesday. It was funny watching them go about each other's lives. But they end up still as different bodies, end up going back to that lab, which I don't know what the big deal was and why they had to continue with that mission. Maybe they explained it. Maybe Tyler's mom actually was dying. I don't know, but they had to take away the powers. They go in. There's a little bit of a fight scene. The machine explodes. Everyone ends up being okay, but the tensions were high, and like not what I'm saying. It doesn't make it sound like the tensions are high. I'm still laughing about like just them switching bodies. But they had to talk about what they learned about each other and each other's bodies. And honestly, what I thought was going to happen, I thought that because Enid's such like a compassionate girl, she was going to fix the relationship with Wednesday's mother. I thought that's what they had to do before switching bodies back, but it was more like learning about each other. What did you learn in your own experiences, in your own bodies? That's the kind of thing that they ended up having to say. But okay, they all wake up in their own bodies, and I wish we could have seen just a little bit more with them in each other's bodies. I loved it. Like, even when Enid too had to go like eat what, I don't remember what they were eating, but like brains. Oh honey, Wednesday, it's your favorite. So after that whole thing went down, the tensions escalated pretty quickly. A lot happened all at once with Bianca's mother, Bianca having to siren Mrs. Adams, Wednesday's grandma. Ended up working, but she was being weird, but nobody could figure out why it was weird. Wednesday kind of figured it out after a little bit. But there was a new prophecy where Wednesday's visions... Did her vision start working at this point? Yeah, it must have, because Wednesday ended up having a vision where it's like, now an Adams must die, because you did save Enid, but the prophecy is still going to continue. One Adams member has to die, which we ended up figuring out. Excuse me if you could hear that super cool guy in a super cool car revving his engine out there. I don't know if it came through the microphone, but Wednesday, like the mission isn't over. And jumping the gun a little bit, but what I liked at the end of Wednesday season 2, after this was over, we see that Wednesday will return. Hopefully Jenna Ortega doesn't look like freaky like I've seen in all her pictures, all the fat sucked out of her face, but conversation for another time, I guess. We get a little bit of a backstory on Principal Dort. Principal Dort is ready to take all the money. Principal Dort is ready to take off, and his powers revealed to everybody, where he just grabs that dude that I guess he was supposed to share a profit with and just burns him, tosses him into a fire. Like, Bianca's freaked out. It was kind of funny. Like, just the way that he lit him on fire, and then, like, just to add insult to injury, whoop, see you later. But Wednesday ended up figuring out, and I thought it was pretty cool the way they did it, actually. And again, I didn't talk enough about, like, what Agnes was been doing, but Agnes has, like, added so much to not only the story, but just, the charisma of the show in general. I really enjoyed her presence everywhere, okay? Wednesday ended up getting sirened after fencing again with Bianca, and then Agnes was just there, didn't know about it, so Wednesday still kind of had her memories, but Wednesday believed Agnes, and Wednesday kind of figured the entire thing out. So they go to this, whatever it was a gala. They had their dance like they did in the first season, except it wasn't nearly as good. Enid did a good job, I guess. And there was right before that, there was a really nice moment with Enid and Agnes, because Wednesday was being mean, which was a little bit strange, because Agnes liked how mean Wednesday was, but Wednesday was a little bit too mean, I guess, to her. So she was crying to herself, and They ended up making up. They had a little bit of a strange relationship where they were barking at each other the entire time, which, again, was very, very funny. But they ended up, like, just making up. Enid's a very nice person. She took on Agnes, and then she's like, oh, but you don't know my dance routine unless you've been stalking me. And then that little creepy smile that she does, like, it was just good. They ended up dancing together. And after that, I think that's, like, because it was such a big takeaway from Wednesday season 1 was the dance. I guess they had, like, another dance before continuing on. Agnes ended up stealing that, like, whatever Principal Dort was wearing around his neck to protect him from the siren. So Bianca could end up sirening him, and there's nothing that he could do about it. So he confessed to everybody where he's like, now this guy's burning in my bonfire. Ends up getting killed by a chandelier after being, like, just completely frozen in place from stone. He had a crazy death, which was cool. Everybody's happy, but the story's not over yet. But now we have the final confrontation, and I feel like there were so many moments in this, like, entire story so far. There's, like, a lot that went on in just, like, what, 8 to 10 episodes? Whatever it was. There was so much going on with this. It's very well written. I enjoyed this entire story. So now, Pugsley ends up getting kidnapped. I still don't remember why they needed Pugsley. It was something to do with his electric ability, but he's kidnapped. They're using their original plan, I guess, to save Tyler's mom. And I forgot to mention Thing. Thing was hilarious throughout this entire thing, by the way. Loved Thing. But Thing ended up... Oh, this is how he ended up getting kidnapped. Because Wednesday thought that she was going to be able to save the day. But Slurp ended up like, oh, that's cute. He took Thing back, and Thing was part of his own hand. That was crazy. And I was afraid that Thing was going to end up dying. Because he ended up just stitching Thing back together. We then have not a flashback. There's like presented to us in a flashback of like what the parents did. And they were actually the ones that like kind of not really ended up murdering Slurp. That was actually crazy. That was actually crazy the way they ended up revealing that. But regardless, Pugsley's in danger. He's dying. Tyler's dying too. That whole thing was confusing to me with Tyler. Like, was she trying to save Tyler or was she sacrificing Tyler? I don't even know. Regardless, Tyler didn't want any part of this, but Slurp, who gained the abilities of the Force already, is just like, you down, like, just restrains him. But then Wednesday comes in at the last second, ends up saving the day, doesn't chop his head off for whatever reason, just saves him. Maybe Wednesday likes him just a little bit. Maybe. And the whole thing explodes again. Everything goes wrong. Tyler transforms into his hide mode. The mother dies, and we have this crazy... My wife and I were actually talking about this. Like, imagine acting this. Like, when Slurp at the end, he couldn't use his Force because it was actually Thing, and Thing was still in his relationship with the Addams family and loves Wednesday, where he's like... Imagine, like, having to act this, you know? Like, I don't know how the hell they didn't laugh throughout the entire thing. Oh, and I forgot to mention before that, Wednesday was buried alive. Obviously, like, whenever Wednesday was in trouble, I didn't actually believe that Wednesday was going to die, which she should have. She would have suffocated. Like, they waited way too long where Agnes had to go get Enid. She had to come back. She had to transform, and I forgot to mention that, too. She's an idiot. She transforms. There's this whole story that I didn't really care for about her being the alpha, not being able to transform back. She digs Wednesday out and leaves to Canada. I don't know how far Nevermore was from Canada, but she left to Canada, I guess. You couldn't have stuck around. They couldn't have figured something out. Oh, but she's so sad. Like, I don't know, man. It's a little strange how some of these things ended up working. But anyways, what I was talking about, Thing ended up not being used by Slurp, ended up crawling back to them, tore him apart. You would have thought that Wednesday with the axe could have, like, just chopped his arm off. I know she tried, but, like, I meant, like, when he was struggling. So everything ended up being okay. Pugsley ended up being saved. Thing is still part of the family. Thing loves Wednesday. The school ends up shutting down. Everybody ends up being okay. Tyler ends up getting welcomed into a pack because there was a whole storyline about him needing a master too. A little bit not interested, but I don't know if Tyler's going to end up being okay. For some weird reason, I feel like him and Wednesday are going to actually end up together at the end. It was Wednesday's only, like, a love, I guess. But it doesn't. That's a small prediction. I guess we have a lot of Wednesday content to go through, or a lot of different seasons coming out. But I love the way they set up this next season. I can see this being a banger of a storyline. So they need to find Enid, who's all the way in Canada. She doesn't go with her family, and instead she gets in with her Uncle Fester. Wednesday, Uncle Fester, and Thing go to find Enid. That is going to make for such a really, really fun season, and I hope, like, that's how the entire next season is, and it isn't really back in Nevermore. I would love to take a break from that and then have the following season. come back to Nevermore. It would be a breath of fresh air. I would love all of that. But Wednesday has her powers back now, and while she's driving and while everything is seemingly okay, hey, we're going to go find Enid, we need to fix this. Wednesday's neck goes like, that didn't feel good on my own neck, but she ends up getting a vision of some of her relatives, where one of her relatives are being kidnapped, I guess, or kept in a basement somewhere, and she's writing on the wall in blood, Wednesday must die. So there is still an Addams member that needs to die. I don't know if somebody's going to end up sacrificing themselves in the end. I don't know if Wednesday's going to be the one to die by the end of all this. I doubt it, but I can see with the way they're setting up for this to be a banger season. There was so much that happened, and whether it was just entertaining, it was interesting, like the story throwing you for a loop. I loved this all. I would give this season a complete 10 out of 10. Complete 10 out of 10. I thoroughly enjoyed my experience watching Wednesday, and I can't wait to talk about this again. I need to redo my season 1. This is typically at the end of the video where I'd be like, oh, if you're interested, go check out my season 1 review. But that was really, really new into this channel. It was like a 5-minute breakdown, and I wasn't nearly as good at doing these as I am now. Not to say that like I'm a great critic or whatever. I'm a fan of these things. I like to talk about these things, and hopefully you enjoy listening to me yap throughout all this. So let me stop you and let me point you to whatever video ends up on screen right now, because YouTube thinks that you will like this video the best. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. Take care, guys.